In my last video, I went out to the auction and blindly bought a vehicle. And rather than it being something cool like every other YouTuber buys, this was just a 2010 Chevy Impala. And once we got it back to the shop, we noticed it had a whine that got very loud as the car warmed up. And as luck would have it, the transmission did not move when the vehicle got hot. So we pulled it out, got the transmission on the bench, and now we're going to investigate why this transmission loses gear when hot. Now, when we were draining the transmission, we took the pan off and we saw that the magnet was covered with metal. And that's probably what's causing this transmission not to move when you get hot. The filter is getting clogged up and it's losing the hydraulic pressure to make the transmission function. So we're essentially going to be looking for the source of all that metal. Once we get that fixed, we can do some updates to the valve body, put everything back together, and we should be good to go. Alright, so we start with the back cover here, and we got to get this mount off. And these mounts will look different depending on the vehicle your 4T65 is in. There's a lot of applications for this transmission, so it kind of looks different. Now on this side, we just got to get the differential cover off, and there's only 2 bolts holding it on because the other 2 bolts kind of mount the transmission to the motor. Now the differential just slides out with an axle shaft that goes all the way through all the guts of the transmission. Now you can do this multiple ways. There's 2 clips on each end of that axle shaft. I take the clip off on the other end and just pull it all through the guts. You can also take the differential pin out on this side and take the axle clip out on that side as well. To each his own. Next we get the rear pan or side pan off of this thing, and now we have the pump and valve body exposed. The last thing, we're going to get this converter out because, you know, it's a little heavy and it's hard to get out of there. Next thing you have is the wiring harness. Now it just unplugs from all the solenoids, and if you need to know what solenoids plug up where, just email me at justcallmeeddie1 and I'll help you out. Next you get the pump off. That's what I just set off there to the side, and then you have the valve body exposed, and these use 8mm, 10mm, a 13mm, and I believe a T, I want to say 25, but I think it's a 27, so it's probably a Torx head 27. And then on the channel plate you just have 8mm, Torx head 27, and 10mm to get all those bolts out. And then you have to take that clip out for the linkage right there. Don't forget to do that or you'll get hung up like I did just now. Next we have the 4th clutch and the 4th clutch hub. Now this clutch usually doesn't get burnt up and there's only 2 frictions in it. I think it just assists other clutches when driving, so nothing really to worry about. Next we got the speed sensor reluctor wheel that goes on one of the sprockets, and then the pump shaft itself that drives the pump through the back of the converter. And then getting these sprockets out, you just kind of want to get them out evenly, and then one will pop off and you get the chain out. Now I can't take that other sprocket out because there's an O-ring on the other side of that shaft that I have to take off to get it out. Next we have the center support, and this can be a little rough coming out because it's kind of a tight fit in the case. So I use 2 channel plate bolts, screw them in there, and you have a good place to grab it out. Next we're going to get the 2nd clutch drum and the input drum all in one. They all come out together, and then you'll see the input sprag and 3rd clutch sprag, and they all come out together as well. Now we got the reverse band. Now this band usually does not break, and I have actually never seen a broken one in these transmissions, so it holds up pretty well. Now we can grab the whole gear set and planetary system. What we just grabbed was the front planet, and now this is the rear planet. And at the bottom we have 2 drums. One is the reaction drum and the other is a forward drum. Now these drums don't even have clutches in them, they just have bands that go around them and apply to hold them in place. Alright, so we had quite a bit of metal in our transmission pan on this thing, and that was obvious because we knew the filter was getting stopped up. But we haven't really found the source of that metal quite yet. I mean, everything we've taken apart so far looks like it is okay. There's no gears messed up or anything in these planets. Even in the differential here looks okay. So everything looks okay inside the unit so far, which is good news. But that means that we probably have a problem inside this thing. So we're going to cut this open and see what's going on inside that thing and see if that's the source of all that metal. If it is, then we know where the source is. We can now put everything back together, clean all this metal out, and put a new filter in there. All right, let's see what happens. Well, everything looks okay so far. Huh? Everything looks all right so far. Look at the metal. Ah, there it is. So as my technician was pointing out, we have a burnt up torque converter clutch. Actually, it's gone. It's completely gone. There's no torque converter clutch left, and there was metal on metal, and that's where all the metal came from that was inside that transmission pan and clogging up the filter. So you would think, hey, we just replaced the torque converter, put a new filter in it, put everything back together, and we're good to go, right? Well, not so fast. Younger Eddie might have done that, but older Eddie has gotten wiser, and he knows better, especially with the 4T65E. These transmissions have several weak points, and just one of them failed on this transmission, and who knows what else will fail if we just put it back together without going through it with a fine-tooth comb. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to buy brand new bands all across the board in this transmission. These bands are a severe weak point, and I have pulled several of them out just for a broken forward band, and it is not good. Next, we're going to do some updates in the valve body. We're going to replace the TCC regulator valve, and we're also going to replace the boost valve with a Sonic's Zip Kit boost valve. Now, the valve body controls all of the pressure going to the different parts of the transmission, and there is a solenoid called an electronic pressure control solenoid that regulates that fluid pressure throughout the unit. And we're going to replace that solenoid as well, because that is yet another weak point inside this transmission. So there you have it. You have a heavy-duty forward band, and you have a couple other different things to update inside this transmission, including the valve body, and then we're going to replace all the seals and clutches while we're at it, because why not? When you have something apart, it's better to do it once and do it right than do it wrong and do it twice or 3 times like I've done before on these transmissions. Now we're going to reassemble the guts of the transmission, and by guts I mean the planetaries, the drums, and basically everything up to that center support and chain sprockets. And once we get to that point, we're probably going to take a pause and look at the valve body and start to update that. So the part crawl goes this way, and that lube hole goes down just like that. Forward band here, I believe. And then our hub goes in there. Well, before we go any further, we're going to put our forward accumulator in, and we're going to clean it up a little bit. It doesn't really matter which way it goes on. Just got to go on there, and then you take your bolts. Right here. And you see that band? We got this band, and this is called a 1-2 coast band, and it goes in, sits in that gap right there, and lugs in on the case right there. And it's what holds this assembly. It goes down in the sprag. But we have our clutches, drums ready to go back together here. Got our second clutch drum here, and then we got the, I don't even know what this one's called, but we got that one down there as well. And then we also got that sprag assembly installed all the way down there, as you see. So this tool goes down inside that sprag assembly, way down in there, and you tighten it up here. Now when you tighten it up, it holds all this assembly together. Cursing, just disregard it. But once you gotta get a few things lined up here. a little bit. Real test to see if you're all the way down in there. You set this thing down on there. That's how you check the in play, and if it's down like that, where you got a little bit of gap in between there, you know the in play's right. Now, so this thing goes right in like that. Tap that thing in there. Sorry you couldn't see that, but I had to see. This hole. Like I said earlier, this thing goes in right there. Right there. And first of all, we have a thrust washer that goes down on here. And it just sits right in the 3 grooves chain that goes around these sprockets. We're going to go ahead and put the chain on this side too. And then, there it goes down in there, just like that. This little reluctor wheel that goes on this side, the thrust washer that goes right there. Alright, so we got some clutches that go in, and I believe these things, just like so, just like so. This is nice metal gaskets here and non-paper gaskets, and they work really well and they fit. Next we have the valve body here, and we have a few updates we're going to do to this valve body to make sure that the problems that happen in this thing don't happen again. First we have a TCC apply valve kit here. It's got the Teflon seal in it with a new spring. I'll show you how to install that. And we also have a boost valve update kit here. We're going to install that. And then we have a new EPC solenoid here. Make sure we got good pressure control. Flip this thing over. As you notice, first off, we have some screens in here. Alright. It's also got some plastic dials. A little bit of metal in there too. See some metal got up in the valve body. So okay, now I got the valves laid out nicely here. And this is our boost valve right here, and this is what we're going to update with this one right here. Now, as you can hear, that's nice and free, moving back and forth back there. And this one right here goes in with this valve first. Moving nice and free. Alright. And then we make sure this is still moving free. Spray a little brake clean in there for good luck. And I believe this will go in there just like that. It should just... Alright. Bam! Updated boost valve installed. Now the rest of these we're going to be just pitting back in one by one the way they came out, basically. So this one will go in just like that. And we're basically just going to make sure that they move nice and freely. And if they do, then we're going to let them do their job. It seems nice. CPC spring goes first on this valve here. And I'll show you how this works. So first of all, this O-ring goes on this right here. So we'll set that over there. And here's our new valve. Alright. Now the way this works is there's a Teflon seal, and this Teflon seal goes on the valve. Just like that. And the spring goes in and it replaces that valve right there. We're going to stick this thing in. Now this thing isn't always as easy as 1, 2, 3 install. As you can see, we're going to get hung up right there. Stick it around here. You're going to take this little piece of paper. This is actually a piece of lamination paper. Now we're going to stick the valve in there just like so. Installing this TCC apply valve may take several attempts, so remember to be patient, and then once you get it in place, you can use the original manufacturer TCC clip to hold it to where that won't come back out and you won't have to do the process all over again. Now once you put your solenoid in, you can air check the valve and make sure it's actuating properly, and when it is, it'll save your torque converter in the long run. Now we're going to put the rest of the valve body back together, and this is the way it goes back together on the other side of the valve body. We're just going to clean everything up, make sure it moves freely, and go ahead and install it in the valve body. Now if any of your valves are feeling sticky or they quite don't move freely, you can use some brake clean, move them back and forth. You can also get some bore brushes and clean out the valves with a little drill it in and out. And once you get it free, everything is good. Just make sure it's nice and clean, because any little piece of metal can make one of those valves a little sticky and give you a hard shift, or maybe even miss a gear. Once assembled, we can install the valve body along with the pump and the wiring harness. This is the final assembly, so we want to make sure everything is in the right place and torqued down properly. The final thing we'll need for this transmission, once we have it all back together, is a brand new torque converter. And we can rebuild that in-house, but we're going to buy a brand new one because it's only $90. And the one we took out of this vehicle was too far gone to pretty much repair. It would take lots of hours to repair and machine this torque converter, so it's pretty much scrap metal at this point. So a brand new torque converter, a torque converter apply valve, a boost valve update in the valve body, a heavy duty performance forward band that will not break, and then we're going to go through every drum, replace all the clutches and seals as well, because while you're doing this job, you want to make sure you do everything that's accessible before you put it back in the car. So it's going to be a complete rebuild, and this is the proper way to do it. Now you may be able to get away with not doing some of the clutch drums and stuff like that. To each his own, and if you want to take that risk, I hope you're really good at pulling the transmission back out, because I have several times trying to cut corners. My recommendation is to do it right and you do it light, or if you do it wrong, you probably do it long. Other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at justcallmeeddie1@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to this channel to make sure you don't miss any more of my videos. And be sure to comment and let me know how your project is going below. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well, where I try to post reels weekly. And whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, make sure you stay dirty, and you can just call me Eddie.